You're watching ABC10 Plus This Week.
Hi everyone, I'm Walt Gray. You are watching ABC10 This Week. An expert warns of catastrophic damage after the deadly back-to-back Venezuela earthquakes. In dollars and cents, ABC10's Laura Painter explains why some want to cap Social Security benefits at $50,000 a year, and what President Trump's decision on a federal housing bill could mean for California. ABC10 This Week starts right now.
Turning now to the latest in Venezuela.
Yeah, as it recovers from that strongest earthquake in more than a century. Tonight, the health minister says around 235 people have died and more than 4,000 have been injured. Tonight, the search continues for people trapped in collapsed buildings. Thousands are reported missing and buildings have been evacuated as far away as the Amazon in Brazil. The natural disaster is the latest challenge for the acting president. She's the former vice president who took over in January after the U.S. arrested then-President Nicolas Maduro. New aid and supplies are now being sent from across the globe.
We're learning more about the Venezuelan earthquakes from a leading structural engineer based in West Sacramento. Kit Miyamoto helps with recovery around the world. He's been to tragic earthquakes like those in Mexico and Turkey and is now on his way to Venezuela.
And our estimation is for earthquake of this size, usually affect about 50% of building stocks does experience the damage, and they're not habitable today. So you're talking about 10 million people, 5 million people are immediately homeless.
Dr. Kit Miyamoto is an earthquake structural engineer and CEO of Miyamoto International, based in West Sacramento. He and his team are flying into Colombia and will then make their way into Venezuela. He says Venezuela's major airports are shut down due to extensive earthquake damage. ABC 10 talked with Miyamoto during his layover in LAX as he explained the unique challenges Venezuelans face right now.
And there are mid-rise buildings. Anything built prior to mid-1980s, there is no seismic protection system. So they're completely dangerous. Many buildings are pretty old and not making pretty well in the area.
Miyamoto says his team will first look at the extent of the damage to help governments form their recovery plans. They also assist organizations and agencies with the United Nations.
This is going to be one of the really worst ones. It's a capital, its capital is affected badly. So that itself really impact as a nation in a very severe way.
And Miyamoto has a nonprofit called Miyamoto Global Disaster Relief if you are looking for a way to help others overseas.
On President Donald Trump's desk right now is a bipartisan bill to address the nation's affordable housing crisis. But the president is delaying a signature until lawmakers finish unrelated legislation. Good evening. Thanks for joining us on To The Point. I'm Becca Habiger. ABC 10's Jeannie Nguyen is here to explain the holdup and what California lawmakers are saying.
Well, Becca, President Trump says he wants Congress to first pass the Save America Act before he signs the housing bill known as the 21st Century Road to Housing Act. Most lawmakers support the housing bill and are confident it will become law. But some lawmakers say this would not bring down the cost of housing and only add to it.
Every election's important. We're doing very well.
That was President Donald Trump's reaction Wednesday after canceling a planned signing of H.R. 6644, the 21st Century Road to Housing Act. In a post on Truth Social, Trump said the signing is canceled and wants Congress to pass the Save America Act, a bill that's divided lawmakers over voter ID and proof of citizenship requirements.
They want a lot of communists to come in. I'm saying it a little bit differently, but the people that they're pushing are communists, and this country is not going to have communists.
Democratic California Congressman John Garamendi, who authored provisions in the housing bill, says he's confident the president will sign it, helping lower costs and increase housing supply in California.
A tax credit for developers to build low and moderate income housing, so they get a tax break. Another element is for the rehab of existing housing units, update them so that they are not only affordable, but they are livable. You can live in them. There are programs to provide subsidies for low and moderate renters.
Even though the legislation got overwhelming support from Democrats and Republicans, Republican California Congressman Tom McClintock was one of the lawmakers that voted against it.
I mean, this is true of anything in a marketplace. When something is scarce, it's expensive. When it's plentiful, it's cheap. We used to have affordable housing at every income level because we allowed builders to build to that demand.
The bill would limit large investors from buying additional single-family homes. McClintock argues that could drive up costs, while Garamendi says more homes should be available for families to buy. The nonpartisan Turner Center for Housing Innovation says the policy could help level the playing field for buyers.
In communities where you're seeing high investor activity, it could be useful in giving first-time home buyers in particular less competition to buy that home that they'd like.
While the president is holding off for now, House Speaker Mike Johnson hinted that the bill could still be signed soon.
Great policy. The president, when we go through the details of the bill, he's going to understand that it's a good product, and certainly something that fulfills his promises to bring down the cost.
And President Trump has 10 days to sign or veto the bill. Speaker Johnson indicated today that the president will take advantage of that while he wants to focus on the Save America Act.
The Chico community came together after 2 people were shot and killed in a public library. The shooting happened yesterday evening at the Chico branch of the Butte County Library System. Tonight, investigators say the suspect, 18-year-old Bradley Sayer, was influenced by the Columbine High School shooting. They say he made a deep dive into its social media community and lost his way.
Police say it took 4 minutes for them to arrest Sayer after getting the initial call. Inside the library, one father describes the scary moments.
I see the gunman with the rifle in hand. It was like a hunter's rifle, like I said, pointing towards the door right where me and my son were standing. There were shots being fired as I was running into the office room, and then once we were all, huddled in there waiting for the help to come, there was more shots being fired, probably like 3 to 5 shots during that time as well.
The 2 men shot and killed were 74-year-old Robert Johnson and 46-year-old Jacob Hull. Hull's friends say he died protecting the 8-year-old child who was also hurt.
From my understanding, he was preventing the shooter from getting further into the library, and that is what led him to being shot.
Tonight, as the community gathered to speak out against gun violence and mourn this senseless act, the road to healing is just starting.
ABC 10's Garshpal Sangha is live outside the library tonight. I know an emotional night for everyone gathered there, Garshpal.
It was, Chris and Laura, and it wrapped up here about a few hours ago. About 150 to 200 people attended that vigil, and there's memorials that are popping up here around the library. There's ones that are in front of it, but also here on the back side of the library as people have been coming by to pay their respects, lay down flowers, electric candles here, but you can also see a little bit of that memorial that's closer to the back entrance. Now tonight, people from across Chico came to this library to mourn, reflect, and show they aren't going to let this tragedy define their community. Just one day after a shooting inside a Chico library killed 2 men and injured a young girl, the community came together in front of that building to remember the victims. Neighbors and local leaders filled the lawns with flowers, candles, and prayers.
Complete shock. You hear about things like this happening, but we frequent the library often together as a family. My son has tutoring here. We come to story time, and we usually come around 5 o'clock.
Cindy and Omar Serrato have lived in Chico for decades. They didn't know the families involved, but say they felt compelled to pay their respects and show their children the importance of supporting others in difficult times.
Stuff you read about, you see about, but to hit so close to home, in our home.
Through shared hugs, prayers, and moments of silence.
But this is the first time we've experienced it this way in Chico. And I just felt today how fragile life is.
The community walked around the library after the vigil.
Reclaim the whole property by all walking around and spreading the love around the building, which I think is really important to reclaim it as the sacred place the library is.
For many, the shooting shook their sense of security.
It really is, because a library is supposed to be like a sanctuary, for peace and knowledge. I can't comprehend the senselessness of it.
The violence is still hard to process in this tight-knit Chico community. As the community grieves, the message for many here was simple: standing together, supporting those hurting, and helping children make sense of the tragedy.
We tried to educate our kids that this stuff happens and it can happen in our backyard, and it did.
And you can see a portion of the back entrance here. It's boarded up with plywood, and you can see more flowers, candles, and this message that someone put here. It says, there is love here, there is forgiveness here, and there is sadness as well. Our hearts are with you today. Now the community is saying they're going to keep the victims' families in their hearts and try to grieve together as a community. Now for the suspect, he's due in court on Thursday, currently facing 2 murder counts. Reporting from Chico, Garj Paul-Sunga, ABC 10.
Yeah, Garj Paul, that memorial says so much about how the victims in the community really respond and love each other. Thank you for that update. Such a heartbreaking situation.
And following the shooting, the Butte County Library System says they plan to have security at each of their locations.
Their library branches will remain closed for now. The director of libraries shared this message at a news conference today.
The library should be a place of joy. It should be a place where people of all ages come to learn, connect, laugh, and discover something new. Most importantly, it should be a place where people feel safe. And yesterday, that sense of safety was shattered.
They say they will announce when their branches will reopen. They also say the Chico branch was already scheduled to close in August for renovations. It'll reopen when renovations are complete.
Well, California is suing the Trump administration again. This time, the lawsuit is over a move that could allow Congress to roll back some of the state's clean air rules for cars, trucks, and other engines. ABC 10's Jeannie Nguyen explains what's at stake.
Well, Becca, this makes 72 lawsuits California has filed against the Trump administration. Attorney General Rob Bonta says the EPA is overstepping its authority and attempting to diminish the work the state has done to ensure clean air. The EPA argues it's following the law with affordability in mind for Californians.
It would unravel the decades of progress California has made on combating climate change and improving air quality.
Attorney General Rob Bonta is referring to the U.S. Environmental Protection Agency's latest decision to allow Congress to review 4 of California's emissions waivers. The waivers allow California to enforce vehicle and engine emissions standards. They cover programs including greenhouse gas limits for vehicles, advanced clean car rules, and emission standards for small off-road engines like leaf blowers and lawn equipment. Some of these standards have been in effect for more than 10 years.
Our waivers have long been considered aren't subject to expedited congressional disapproval. Rules, however, are subject to expedited congressional disapproval. EPA reclassified these waivers as rules and submitted them to Congress for review.
And that's the heart of the lawsuit. California argues the EPA illegally reclassified those waivers as federal rules, a move that could make it easier for Congress to repeal them under the Congressional Review Act.
EPA does not have the legal authority to reclassify these waivers. Doing so violates the Administrative Procedure Act and goes beyond the scope of the EPA's authority as an agency.
The EPA sees it differently. The agency says Congress should have the opportunity to review California's emissions policies and says it's focused on making sure vehicles remain affordable for consumers.
These super regulations, if you will, hit us in the pocketbook. You know, they cost us in gas and fuel and having to purchase more expensive vehicles.
Republican Congressman James Gallagher acknowledges that California has landmark clean air laws, but says affordability should be top of mind at this point.
Are they more costly than they provide in benefit? And what are they doing to the everyday California consumer and the choices that they have?
But the Coalition for Clean Air says if the EPA gets its way, it'll be more pollution in the state and costly for drivers.
And we all know how expensive gasoline is now. So we should be looking for every way to use less gasoline, and California rules allow that. So they're actually very cost effective.
And the EPA would not comment on this pending lawsuit, but a spokesperson says waivers of California rules have always been rules, and Congress hasn't been given the required opportunity under the Congressional Review Act to review these rules.
Imagine leaving the bank, then being followed and robbed.
It's happening in Manteca. Police have made at least 1 arrest, but nearly a dozen cases are still being investigated.
ABC 10's Gabriel Porras has the safety alert, new at 5.
To Lisa Bustamante, it almost never happened.
I kept telling myself, oh, you don't need to go to the bank today.
But needing to prepare for a big purchase, she headed to Manteca's Main Street Wells Fargo.
I went to the bank to withdraw $13,000 some odd dollars to purchase a vehicle.
The errand went smoothly. She says she locked the cash in her glove box and drove 4 miles to her last stop before home.
Went into the store, literally maybe 3-4 minutes tops. And I came out, and my vehicle was broken into, and they took my money.
$13,000 gone. Police call it jugging, thieves tailing customers from the bank, waiting for the right moment to strike.
I've never even heard of that word. It really was pretty devastating. It took me a while, and every time I went somewhere, I was worried about somebody following me.
It has a lasting effect.
Lisa isn't alone. Manteca police say between April and June, there were at least 10 other jugging cases within city limits. Many of them involved that same bank branch.
And all of a sudden, we started getting more and more of these. In the 10 cases, we had an estimate of 78,000.
Last Thursday, investigators set up surveillance.
Within minutes of their surveillance, he showed up, put himself into a position to observe the bank, and instead of allowing it to play out, they stopped it.
Police arrested 25-year-old Malik Antoine Jamal Shackelford. They believe he's tied to at least 2 of the recent cases and are now looking into others. Whether her case is connected or not, Lisa and police hope her story becomes a warning.
You don't want to walk out of a bank with a bank bag. I wouldn't leave money in your car.
Be careful of what's around you, especially in this crazy world that we're in now.
And after losing thousands, Lisa says the lesson she paid for is simple.
Trust your gut, yes.
In Manteca, Gabriel Porras, ABC 10.
In state matters this November, Californians will be asked to weigh in on several ballot measures.
At least 2 of those will likely be about affordable housing. ABC 10 political reporter Jenny Hutt joins us now with the details. Jenny.
One measure which already qualified to be on the November ballot focuses on middle-class Californians helping with their down payment. And another one, which in a big development just got the backing of Governor Newsom, hopes to help lower-income Californians.
Let's build those shovel-ready units and get folks rooftops.
Jumpstart over 40,000 units that are shovel-ready, ready to go today if they have the financing.
Democrat State Senator Christopher Cabaldon and Assemblymember Buffy Wicks are co-authors of the Veterans and Affordable Housing Bond Act of 2026. Over the weekend, Senate and Assembly Democrats and Governor Newsom reached a 3-party agreement to get the bond through the legislature and in front of voters on the November general election ballot.
This essentially will serve our lowest income folks, our working class folks, many of whom are either experiencing homelessness or on the precipice of experiencing homelessness.
The $11.25 billion bond has 2 components. The first, a $10 billion voter-approved general obligation bond, which will allow for the construction of shovel-ready affordable housing units statewide. A GO bond is similar to a mortgage. The state is borrowing to fund current needs and will pay back the $10 billion over 30 years with interest.
Sometimes you have big chunks of expenditures that you have to finance over time. So this is totally normal. This is how we have financed housing and affordable housing. So the bond will be repaid by California over the next several decades.
Taxpayer dollars will fund the bond. That's drawing opposition.
With a record budget, why do we need to borrow more money? I'm the youngest member here in the legislature, and everybody wants to borrow from the future to do today, but we can't even do it today.
Republican Assemblymember David Tongipaw, who serves as vice chair of the Assembly Budget Committee, says California needs to tighten its belt to better fund priorities like housing without accruing debt. The bond also has $1.25 billion for the CalVet Home Loan Program, which helps veterans and military families buy homes. But those are self-supporting revenue bonds, meaning mortgage payments participating Californians pay will be recirculated.
Help the rest of Californians who depend on affordable housing in the state, or maybe they depend on a veterans home loan from CalVet.
Meantime, a separate, also self-supporting housing bond to help middle-class Californians with down payment has qualified for the November ballot. Cabaldon and Wicks say the 2 bonds are complementary.
His initiative is really housing production for more middle income, missing middle housing, and ours is for more low income folks.
The affordable housing bond is set to be voted on in the legislature this Thursday. If it advances and is signed by Governor Newsom, it will appear on the November ballot. Then voters will get the final say.
This is being called a nationwide first. Sacramento County deputies used a drone to disarm a man during a standoff.
Tonight, we're taking a closer look at how deputies were able to pull off that operation and the rules and safeguards in place. ABC 10's Roxanne Elias joins us now with the details. Roxanne?
Well, Laura and Chris, the sheriff's office says the parolee appeared to be under the influence when deputies found him lying on the ground with a knife in his hand. But they say that doesn't necessarily mean or make the situation less dangerous. The person could still be waiting for an opportunity to harm them.
With a knife in hand, a wanted man is disarmed by a drone during a high-risk search warrant at a Sacramento County home last week.
Folsom PD had been looking for this individual for some time. He was a known felon. He was a parolee at large. He was a 290 registrant. He'd raped people.
The sheriff's office says 30-year-old Austin Carter was found inside a home near Goya Parkway Thursday after deputies say he had been seen with a firearm earlier in the day. After Carter didn't respond to negotiators, SWAT deployed a drone and found him hiding in a corner, one hand tucked underneath his body and the other holding a knife.
One of our SWAT team guys, he came up with the idea, say, hey, can we just attach a magnet to the drone? He pitched that to me and I said, let's do it, let's try it.
The magnet pulled the knife away and deputies moved in to arrest Carter. Tom Lee leads the sheriff's drone team known as Scout. He says operators go through extensive training and certification and that drones can't just be used at random.
We follow the laws, especially Fourth Amendment rights and everything like that. We're not going to just do random surveillance. If we're using a drone, it's because someone has called us for a call for service in that area and we're flying a drone to that call for service.
Sergeant Edward Igo also says that in a dangerous situation like this, utilizing technology keeps the suspect and law enforcement from being harmed.
Having a known violent suspect in an enclosed space, armed with a knife, the last thing we want to do is send a deputy into there, which is potentially going to result in a use of force.
We also showed the video to retired criminal defense and civil rights attorney Stuart Katz. He called the tactic resourceful and says as long as a person is operating the drone in real time, he doesn't see any obvious legal issues.
I think it was somewhat resourceful to come up with the idea of a magnet attached to remove a knife. Personally, if you're not talking about autonomous drones, in other words, if you're talking about drones where someone is actually operating it in real time, I just don't see what difference it makes in a legal sense.
According to jail records, Carter is facing multiple felony charges, including a violation of parole. He is set to appear in court tomorrow afternoon, and he is being held without bail.
In tonight's Dollars and Cents, capping Social Security benefits at $50,000 a year. It's part of a growing debate on how to address possible Social Security shortfalls. A financial expert I talked with explains what a cap on Social Security benefits could mean for you and how you can prepare for potential changes to retirement.
There's a growing debate around capping benefits at $50,000 per person. Tell us about how this highlights just how fluid the future of retirement could be.
The Social Security Trust Fund, at some point in probably the next 6 or 7 years, may not have enough money to fully fund Social Security. So the government is thinking and evaluating different ways to shore up the overall system.
A nonpartisan nonprofit called the Committee for a Responsible Federal Budget recently proposed an annual limit to Social Security benefits of $50,000 per single taxpayer or $100,000 per couple. The proposed six-figure limit aims to address potential future shortfalls and insolvency of the Social Security Trust Fund. This comes as the Social Security Administration released this month a warning the trust fund could reach depletion by 2032.
Social Security itself isn't going bankrupt. There is a shortfall with this trust fund, which makes up about 20% of Social Security payments.
Joseph Eshelman, the president and founder of Tower Point Wealth in Sacramento, says reducing benefits would reduce costs, but possibly shortchange higher earners who paid more into the system.
It's not the first time we've had funding challenges with Social Security. It may not be fun, but it is solvable.
If you're near retirement, Eshelman recommends you stress test your retirement plan and review your Social Security claiming strategies. He says current retirees should know how much of your income comes from Social Security and avoid emotional financial decisions. If you're still working, Eshelman recommends you save more, reduce your debt, and build up your retirement assets beyond Social Security. Just this month, California Congresswoman Linda Sanchez introduced the Strengthening Social Security Act. The bill aims to protect Social Security benefits by phasing out the income tax cap and change the metrics used for calculating cost of living adjustments. I'll be tracking this bill and keep you updated. Remember, we have more Dollars and Cents coverage streaming now on the free ABC10 app. Email me at lpainter@abc10.com.
California is recognizing its first Social Media Victims Awareness Day. A bipartisan group of legislators and parent advocates gathered at the state capitol to push for federal support in online safety. ABC 10 State Matters political reporter Jenny Huh spoke with lawmakers and breaks down the debate.
But I'm not here by choice. Coco was contacted, groomed, and exploited by an adult man through Instagram.
Juliana Arnold is an advocate for social media safety. She's also the mother of 17-year-old Coco, who died from fentanyl poisoning by a man she met on social media.
These children were beautiful, joyful, and deeply loved. And too often we are forced to talk about how they died.
Arnold and a bipartisan group of California lawmakers are pushing for social media guardrails not only at the state level, but also at the federal level. They're calling on Congress to reform Section 230 of the Communications Decency Act of 1996.
Section 230 has been called the 26 words that made the internet. But in the 3 decades since, Section 230 has instead become an accountability vacuum.
In an effort to promote online free speech, Section 230 essentially prohibits social media platforms from being treated as the publisher or speaker of content posted by users, which opponents say means platforms are usually not held liable for content, even if harmful. They say the law is outdated and offers a loophole to companies they scornfully call big tech.
It allows some of the most profitable companies in history to turn a blind eye to the foreseeable harms that are happening to California's children.
California will never be able to pass laws that are higher level of protection than the ones that are at federal level, and they will be very low.
So these advocates are supporting an ongoing federal effort to sunset the section over 2 years and work with social media companies to negotiate better accountability rules during that time.
We want them to be the heroes here to help solve this problem.
But we can't do everything California needs us to do because Section 230 liability shield is still in place.
Meantime, debates continue in Washington over the Kids Online Safety Act, or KOSA. There are different versions out there, with one suggesting federal preemption of state AI regulation in exchange for safety bills.
However, what they're doing is trying to stop us from legislating and not providing those protections to Californians. And that's where we stand up and say, whoa, whoa, whoa.
Jenny He, ABC 10.
At the state level, major safety measures have been advancing through the legislature, most notably Democratic Assembly member Josh Lowenthal's bill to restrict platforms with addictive features for those younger than 16.
As the sun rises over Mount Lassen, breakfast is served at the Wild Horse Sanctuary in Shingletown.
Today we're feeding about 200 horses and 35 burros, and we're going out on this feed tractor, and we normally feed about 2 tons a day.
Surrounded by lava rock, meadows, and pine forests, this 5,000-acre sanctuary is home to horses that once faced an uncertain future.
We're the first wild horse sanctuary in the United States, or the oldest, however you want to quote it. No, cloud.
Liz Janke is one of the caretakers at the sanctuary, which traces its roots back to 1978 when founder Diane Nelson refused to let a group of wild horses be sent to possible slaughter after a government roundup and population reduction program.
And she said, I can't let that happen. And her first husband and her took 80 horses, and he said, let's take them all, and they did.
The rescue eventually helped spark national attention and protections for thousands of wild horses across the West. Today, those horses and their descendants have a place to simply be horses.
This is heaven on earth for wild horses. So we have 5,000 acres. They roam free. They live a natural life.
Many of the Mustangs here were gathered from public lands or surrendered by owners who could no longer care for them. Unlike many horse facilities, these animals aren't being trained, ridden, or even adopted out.
Because we promised these horses to live out their life here. These are not meant to be ridden. They came here for a reason. They wanted to be wild.
And that's exactly what visitors come to see. Not horses in stalls, not horses in arenas, but horses living together in family bands, making their own decisions and roaming where they please.
I hope they go home with the sense of that there are still wild horses that are living a free, happy, wonderful life.
For Liz, the reward is simple.
There's nothing more rewarding than when you're done feeding in the morning and everybody's eating. Good morning.
It's a peaceful sound that's been echoing across these meadows for nearly 50 years now.
From the Wild Horse Sanctuary in Shingletown, I'm John Bartel. Hope to see you on the back roads.
And thanks for watching ABC 10 This Week. I'm Walt Gray. See you next time.